Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavati Tamastu Mavit Vishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hey, so happy New Year. So we left off, we're at the very last part of the Gita, chapter 18. And we left off with the last topic. The Lord assures his teaching will liberate his devotee. Really, the assurance is if you put in the work, you get it. There's nothing else about that. So from verses 67 to 73. And in 66, he just prior to this topic, he had the famous verse, Sarva Dharma Parityajya Mamekam Sarva Raja, meaning relinquish fully all dharmas, take refuge in me. The idea. So the idea is you got to drop your worry and anxiety, the result of your activities. So the worry and anxiety comes when you're focused on the result of your activities. Just drop it, just get on with it. Drop your vasanas. You can't drop your vasanas if you're involved and worried all the time. You just do it, it will resolve itself. So the focus has got to be on the self itself. So you extract yourself from the terrestrial, mundane activities, and eventually you're into meditation and you're focused on the self. So this is what this verse is putting forward. And in 67, where it begins this topic, he puts forward teaching in a sense. So teaching this knowledge. So this knowledge ought not to be offered to those who cavil. It's not to those who don't question, you ought to question, but those who slight the knowledge, who belittle it, or are skeptical. You can have an intelligent questioning and inquiry, which is very different. And it's not to be offered to those who don't have any tapaha, discipline. So one who channelizes their energies to that greater focus, it's to be offered to that person, but not with one who doesn't have that in mind. And devotion, which oils us all, that love, that feeling, emotion, that refinement. If one has no devotion, it's not to be offered to that person. So there's an emotion, there's a faith, a belief, a shraddha, a feeling, with an intelligent compilation of facts and projections of where you're heading. You have that good feeling and affection between student, teacher, and taught, or whatever you're taking on board as a feeling. And that renders service. That feeling, what can I do? What can I offer back? And when we're doing that, we're actually refining ourselves, nobody else. So it's not the amount of service you just mechanically do, that charity that you do. It's having an attitude within you which is of a charitable disposition, which makes the difference. So whatever you can do, maybe one person can do more than the other, maybe another, but that attitude to want to serve, and it's being channelized to that higher. So again, he says in 68, this is a supreme secret, not because it's to be kept a secret, but because nobody knows this knowledge. So the greatest devotion is one who can promote this knowledge, param bhakti, the greatest devotion. So to the subject, which means to promote this knowledge, you've got to have a concentration on gaining this knowledge. Forget giving it out. You can't give something which you don't have. You've got to work on yourself to gain that. You've got to purify yourself. So that's what that tejas, that brightness, brilliance you appear to be. So between the subject and as you serve, and as you learn, it puts forward. You're able to reflect. As you take in knowledge, you're able to reflect. And as you're able to reflect on that, it's probable that you'll speak about this knowledge to the right people. And as you speak and you refine yourself or reflect and study, not everybody, it speak doesn't mean verbally. You can speak in all different ways, at your physical, at your mental, your emotional, at your material, all different ways you speak by doing what you're supposed to. And as you refine it, and even if you write for yourself, like you write your notes in the morning, you study, you reflect on that, you keep going, and it becomes clearer and clearer. This is what we've got to do. That promotes the greatest devotion in us and the clarity. So he puts forward in 69, the person who teaches does no greater service than that, is the greatest of service. So passing on the knowledge, you get taken care of. Don't worry about that. But passing on the knowledge is really about you unfold yourself and you pass on that knowledge. So you cultivate swadhyaya jnana yajna. Swadhyaya means swa means one's essential nature. Yajna, that jnanam, that knowledge, you reflect upon that knowledge of the self. Yajna, how you perform that service sacrifice within yourself. You've got to unfold yourself, raise yourself before you can even think of anybody else. So we remember in 9, Uddare Atmanatmanam, you've got to raise yourself by yourself. You've got to put in the efforts to unfold yourself, and the self reveals itself. So your job is to unfold yourself. Our job is to unfold ourselves. Nothing else, nothing less than that. So it speaks. So that is just where we came up to. I think you almost have had it's been a couple of weeks. We've been looking at all many things have happened in this couple of weeks, surely, in holy days. We have to think what holy days it has been. So let's do, if there's any question before we go ahead, otherwise we'll go to verse 70.
71.
70. Is it 71? Ah, I didn't realize we'd finished.
Shraddhavananasuyascha Shrunuyadapi yo naraha Sopi mukta subham lokan Prapnuyat punya karmanam.
Sam, if you could read the. Yes.
Verse 71. And even the man who listens, imbued with Shraddha, faith, free from malice and liberated, he too shall attain the worlds, those of meritorious deeds.
So an Asurya without malice. So one who has Shraddha, that commitment. We talked a lot about Shraddha in the whole of the Gita, that commitment, that determined pursuit till the very end. That sort of person is liberated from samsara, the mundane entanglements. So we don't even realize what we're entangled in. Everything binds us. The minute we contact anybody, anything, we get bound to it and we get distracted from whatever we're supposed to be doing. So we don't realize how we get entangled. But you can't impose Shraddha on anybody or another person. You just got to cultivate it in yourself. You might even this is even more trickier, because when we look at something like that, we're cultivating a Shraddha, something we don't even know. We don't know the self. Unless you got to the self, you don't know the self. And if you got to the self, you can't explain it really to anybody else. All this is trying to get us to think about something which we don't know, unless you've got it. And if you've got it, you won't be here or anywhere like this. So in a known field, it's tricky to cultivate Shraddha for another. In somewhere where you don't know, it's even more trickier. And people talking about all sorts of different things about love or faith or, devotion. And it's difficult to actually pinpoint. So people talk around about, you go to certain places in this type of knowledge, they talk about history, they talk about stories, that deep Shraddha from within, that devotion, that emotion, that intellection with that confluence of a consistency of purpose. I'm going to get it. That mumukshatva, that yearning to be free. I'm going to get it. I'm going to waste my time everywhere. I'm going to get on with it. So free from malice. How can we be free from malice? Get liberated and you attain the words of meritorious deeds. Meaning, well, you get liberated, meaning in the sense that when one embarks on this type of knowledge, your mind, to the extent you put in that effort, your mind gets rid of the general sorrows of life. Well before liberation, you get that punya, and as long as you're not holding on to that punya, but you dissolve your sorrows, your problems in life, because you're onto something else. They just get cleared up. Like in the Atma Bodha, it says, well before the sun rises in from the sun, it's dark, the dawn, and well before the sun sets, there's light in the dawn, the darkness of the dawn that goes, there's light well before the sun is set and risen. Sorry, the sun is risen. So it's like that. Well before liberation, your sorrows are gone. So you're freed up. So before self-realization, you're practically, partially liberated when you take on board this type of knowledge. So in the previous couple of verses, 60 869, was talking about what you teach as what comes out of you. The self offers the self to the self in that sense. And here 1771 is talking about how you listen in effect. In fact, just recapping in 70. So, he who studies the sacred knowledge does yajna. Such a person comes to the self. So one who serves and sacrifices, it's the running theme. So one who holds that conviction, has a clear conviction about what you're doing. This is at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna needs this pep talk. So do we, because we're the Arjunas here. Because it's automatically, the minute you start taking in this knowledge, and when you've reflected on it, and without being, you're not to be imposing, but automatically you start offering something of this knowledge. It doesn't mean you're shoving it in somebody's face, but when you gain something and you're inspired, it automatically gets imparted in some sense or another. You can do it in different ways. In the purity of it, I don't mean you take in some knowledge and you regurgitate it out like some nonsense you're imposing just because you know something. And that's not of any avail to anybody. In fact, it recoils. But when you unravel your truth self, it speaks volumes other places. People recognize it. They don't even recognize what it is that they're recognizing. So your job is to unfold the self, keep that conviction with the self. As you raise yourself, you understand where to put, where to keep quiet. And that discipline, tapaha, comes in. Let's read it.
Happy means also. It links this verse to the last 3 verses. Therein, the Lord declares that the one who preaches his sacred message practices bhakti, devotion, karma, service, and jnana, knowledge, thus performing meritorious deeds. He frees himself from worldly attachment, attains his supreme abode. This verse pronounces that even the one who listens with Shraddha faith, free from malice, shall attain the same goal. Listening to a guru or studying scriptural literature is the first phase of acquiring wisdom. The seeker has then to reflect, contemplate, and finally meditate. By this process, he assimilates what he has heard or read. Knowledge then metamorphoses into wisdom. Among those who acquire wisdom, rare indeed is one who imparts the knowledge to the world. Such a great soul even evolves further to attain the ultimate state of peace and bliss.
Mm-hmm. So when you gain this knowledge, most people, when you know that the whole world can't comprehend what it is, even at a relative level, why would you want to go and offer it? If the people you're talking to throw it back in your face. In fact, Christ said, don't clasp pearls before swines. Don't offer to those who cannot take it. So here is putting forward, rare is the person who, when you gain that knowledge, be more likely to be introverted and quiet. So when it's a spillover, it just comes out. You just offer, you assess and you offer. That wisdom is a matter of course. It's a service, just part of one's evolution. It's a service. And it can be done in different ways. It's not necessarily speaking, as one always thinks. As we mentioned before, Ramana Maharishi did it by how, he just was silent, just sat silently, and thousands and thousands of people just came to see Ramana. And then he just moved. He was known to just move. And people got that. He was liberated, that something's there, they got something. People do it in different ways. It's that optimum, whatever it is that manifests. Could be speaking, could be silence, could be in music, could be in something else. Let's get to it.
Even listening to a guru or studying the scripture can bring about spiritual awakening in an ideal seeker who's mentally free of malice and intellectually imbued with faith. Such practice would lead him to a peaceful and happy life, culminating in enlightenment.
So the whole thing is to get into the right satsang and keep yourself in that satsang. Keep yourself away from the distractions which spiral you into the more mundane activities. Everybody in the world, whatever one's doing, is to get to this self. So wherever you have a family, you earn a living, you go for university education or what have you, you get married and have kids, you do something in an organization, whatever it is, everybody's after to get to that freedom. So in which case, if you can see it first, why go through all of those samsaras? Or the minute you see it, why get involved in the samsaras that you've already got around you? Play your part with your obligation, do it objectively, but keep your focus on something higher. Everybody's got their own set of duties and obligations, but keep yourself on that bigger thought. Eventualities happen in life, but just keep the thought on something higher. Never give up. Don't allow the knocks and shocks to hit you. Get over them when they do. Just move as fast as you can. Don't be dampened. Just keep effervescing with that inspiration to get to the truth. So karma, bhakti, jnana yoga, the theme throughout the Gita, all the way through. Gotta keep doing it. Let's go. 72.
कश्चिद्देतात् श्रुतं पार्थ त्वया एकाग्रेण चेतसा कश्चिद् अज्ञानसम्मोह प्रणस्तस्ते धनञ्जय.
Tim, if you'd like to.
Verse 72. Has this been heard by you with single-pointed mind, O Partha? Has the deep delusion of ignorance been destroyed, O Dhanayaya?
Okay. I think, did everybody, can you read once more? I think it got cut.
Verse 72. Has this been heard by you with single-pointed mind, O Partha? Has the deep delusion of ignorance been destroyed, O Dhananjaya?
If you could. You're on mute.
Shall I read it again? Verse 72. Has this been heard by you with single-pointed mind, O Partha? Has the deep delusion of ignorance been destroyed, O Dhananjaya?
So Dhananjaya, a person of victory. So Arjuna is one who, as we know, has won many battles. It's one who's a winner of wealth. So as he wins the battle, he wins the wealth for the country, the nation. So he's almost saying, you've won the wealth for the country. Now you've got to win the wealth for yourself, not your personal self, but the self within. So you've got whatever that you do, the self is important, the truth is important. So everything else is aside. The most important thing that one's got to strive for is that self within. The kingdom of heaven is within. Got to draw it out through single-pointed concentration, and that deep delusion will disappear. He's putting forward. So there's total confusion, delusion, enveloping us. And we've got to get rid of that. O Dhananjaya. So he's giving a general tip to finish, in fact, to Arjuna, which is us at best. You know, you think Arjuna's a bit here and there, but we're not the match of Arjuna even. So we've got to get on with it. So single-pointed mind, Arjuna. Dhananjaya. So many words of affection that he uses. As that delusion disappeared. Let's read it.
This is the last verse of the sermon spoken by the Lord. Significantly, Krishna asks his disciple Partha if he has listened with due concentration, if his delusion is gone, doubts dispelled. A direct reference to Arjuna's supplication for help in the beginning of the second chapter. Arjuna was then in a state of utter confusion and indecision. He surrendered to the Lord, sought his advice. Krishna has given out the supreme knowledge. As a true master, he now verifies if it has helped him to clear his mind of all doubt, to let his intellect assess the situation and decide on the right course of action.
So let's go to a famous verse.
This is the only verse in the entire Gita where Krishna questions Arjuna. Though many rhetorical queries appear through the text, Arjuna answers in the next verse. Arjuna acquired the name Dhananjaya by virtue of having won immense wealth for his country. His victories in battle earned him that wealth. Krishna's appeal to Arjuna is to gain the inner wealth of knowledge by destroying his ignorance and delusion.
Mhm. So Krishna's offering, have you understood, Arjuna? Do you know, has it done what it's supposed to do? Have I answered your queries? And so the famous verse of Arjuna comes now.
Arjuna uvacha nasto mohasmritirlabdva tvatprasadhanmaya chuta stitosmi gata sandeha karishye vachanam tava.
Sam, if you'd like to read.
Verse 73. My delusion is cleared and understanding restored by your grace, O Achyuta.
Mm-hmm.
I am firm with doubt, dispelled, I will do your bidding.
So Arjuna replies to Krishna, Nashto Moha. My delusion is cleared. I've got everything now. The idea of Arjuna's reply is that he's had 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. It's not that he's suddenly become realized, but he's gained knowledge, and a knowledge in how to act and how to think and how to cultivate that devotion, that refinement, how to how to drop one's desires, displace one's desires, how to remove that barrier of vasanas, which is covering the self. So he's got that knowledge. So he has gained, it's indicative of his conviction. So in order to excel on one's spiritual path, you've got to be true to yourself, your conscience, and have a conviction on the path that you tread. Not wavering off to other distractions. There's a conviction all the time for your opting for or your spiritual evolution. So you gain that knowledge, you gain a perception of what the world is for what it is, and you move on that bigger strata. So Arjuna's got that conviction. Goes Krishna. That conviction to do the bidding of the self, to unravel the self. That's all. He can reply, in fact. So his delusion is still very much in the mundane, but you've got that knowledge before the darkness is gone, before the dawn is gone, before the sun has arisen, the light comes about. You gain that conviction in your conscience and your pursuit. You get out of that depression, you get into action. You don't stay in that procrastination, you move on it. Get out of that emotion. Remember in the beginning of the first chapter, he couldn't move. His hair, his mouth's parched, full of worry and anxiety. He couldn't see the wood for his trees. My mouth's parched. How can I kill my kinsman? Didn't know what to do. It's confusion. And now he's saying, Nashto moha. My delusion is gone. So he's not liberated, but it's gone. He knows what to do. Let's read it. So we, at this stage, may not be away from our delusion, but we ought to know what we got to do, at least. Let's go. Let's read it.
Arjuna answers the only question in the entire Gita which Krishna asked in the preceding verse. Have you heard me with single-minded concentration? Is your ignorance removed? Has your delusion gone? This verse is oft quoted. It seems to spell out the effect of spiritual knowledge on the ignorance of humans and on their consequent delusion and distress in life. Here is an assurance from Arjuna that the knowledge imparted by Krishna has dispelled his delusion. He has now a clear understanding of the situation, gained a firm conviction of his role. No more doubt and indecision plaguing him, and that he would plunge into action. Arjuna represents a seeker, and this verse shows how he benefits by spiritual knowledge, moves from ignorance and illusory misconception to knowledge and reality, gains a clear perception of himself and the world, and steers his life through right action with firm conviction. Arjuna addresses Krishna as Achyuta, meaning never fallen. The choice of this word suggests the part played by the Lord in raising Arjuna from his fallen state of delusion and depression.
So, Archita, never fallen. That's what one aspires to. It really doesn't matter where one is at. It really doesn't matter if you take in it's even rubbish that one's putting out. But what matters is one's conviction and the direction you're heading in. So Arjuna's Nashto Moha, my delusion is gone. So let that be with each of us. We pursue our path in such a manner that the delusion is gone, the suppression, the debate, whatever it is. You get out of that, you get on with it in action. Understand what you have to do. Leave the rest behind. Take those difficult decisions. Get on with it. So I'm just thinking. Any question here so far? Any thoughts, Tim?
So the substantive part of the Gita ends here with Arjuna not realized, but committed to the path to realization.
So whatever the journey is, you're committed to it. So in his case, he's got to fight the battle. He's committed to doing that. In the, if you see it previously where it says relinquishing all dharmas, we all have a dharma of our own, dharmas. To get on to that dharma, that swadhyaya, jnana, yajna, that to unfold ourselves, you've got to get off the dharmas, our own individuality. So in playing his part of the pursuit of people, he's getting off his dharmas to get to his dharma, his essential nature, as it were. So, yes. So he's not realized he's just on the right path, getting onto the action of the right path. Sam, yeah.
Just a quick one. When you said he has to get rid of his dharmas to get to his dharma, I understand what you mean by his dharma, like the final one is his essential being. But when you say his dharmas, what do you exactly mean?
That individuality. So we all have a nature, we all have vasanas. We all have a particular nature, which mine might be different to yours or yours to another's. We all have a particular tendencies. So that we have to pursue our dharmas, our essential, our vasanas. But when you're focused on something higher, that dharma, all that becomes insignificant. You're not involved in, I've got to be that best engineer or this. It's a purpose. It's your nature you play to get off it. You're just exhausting that. So you're not attached to that. You relinquish that in a sense. You use it to get out of it. It pushes you on your way faster because you follow your swadharma, but you don't get hooked and involved in it to get to the real dharma. It just helps you along your route in that way.
Thank you.
So when he says without any malice, the things to, what are the qualities? The qualities of having tapaha, discipline. To enjoy any freedom, one's got to have discipline, tapaha. One's got to serve, yajna, work in a spirit, collectively, not with I or my. Even though your nature might be there, pushing it forward, helping it along, you help yourself, help it, but that lack of, you don't get involved and entangled. That devotion, consideration for the whole is always at the back of your mind rather than of self-interest. So there's always that thought, your conscience and conviction, there's a confluence. How can I serve? In order to serve, you've got to have a discipline, a tapaha, something, a direction, channelizing your energies somewhere higher. And you keep having to refine yourself, not having to, you refine yourself. So you keep that inspiration running, that knowledge. I'm off to the academy on the 22nd of this month. Better get your visa in order, Sam. Quickly, as fast as possible. And whoever else is coming, at some point. Don't delay. Give yourself opportunity. That's what that environment just gives you. It's like a catapulting effect. You're giving yourself opportunity to learn, to think. Where this environment's got so many distractions of what we think is important and is non-essential. So really work on giving yourself opportunities for that refinement. So you can feel more, I'm on that path. Nothing can budge me. Nothing can slow me down. All the things which come into play are not to do with me. I'm on a path where I'm supposed to be, not the peripheries, non-essentials. Doesn't matter who's coming or not coming. Get on with it yourself. I think we won't go any further verses here. If there's any questions we can take, but others we'll just continue next week. Have class next week.
Thank you.
There you go.